everyone, welcome to video number 5 of our USA Regions series, and we're going to be doing our last region today in this video, the West. Okay, and we've got quite a bit to cover on this video, but then you'll be ready to really go on all these regions. We'll go over some of the things that we kind of talked about in the last video. I guess we could talk about labeling a few of the states the way that I label California on an angle, because it's kind of a narrow state but very long, so it kind of fits better if you put that one on an angle. That's one of the rare cases where you have to do that. We did it with Florida, if you remember. Okay, I also labeled Colorado and Wyoming, and the reason I chose to label those right now was because I wanted to show you the rest of the Rocky Mountains. We started those in the southwest region, and I'm going to continue them up a little bit. And you can see they go through western Colorado, western Wyoming, and I don't want to get in the way of the star for these two states, but western Montana, leave room to write Montana, and Idaho. That shouldn't be a problem. And you can bring it right up to that Canadian boundary line. There's our neighbor to the north, Canada. And you can see I used a little greenish green edging there. I also drew a little tip of an island that extends into this water of Washington. That's also Canada, Vancouver Island. So if you want to actually put that part of Canada too. And you can see I've also shaded along the coastline of Washington, Oregon, and California. That's a long coastline along our western coast. And also included in the West are two states that really, we have to put those into what they call an inset. An inset map shows an area that is not necessarily in its proper position. Alaska is way to the north, and Hawaii is way to the west, so the paper would have to be huge to fit those in their actual location, and the scale is a little different. I had to draw Alaska at much smaller than it really is. Alaska is actually the largest state in the country. So let's actually look at Alaska. I labeled it, the state name, and I put you can see the little star right there. I used a leader line to write Juneau for the capital. I also labeled the two oceans that touch upon Alaska, which are the Pacific and the Arctic. So go ahead and label those two oceans, and you can shade along that coastline. And if you want to put a little green along that Canadian boundary line, you can too, just to show that's land there. In our Hawaii inset, I've labeled the state, Honolulu, the capital, and I also labeled the Pacific Ocean. And you can put a nice edging of blue around that. If you want a little extra credit on your map, you could even go ahead and label some of those major islands of Hawaii. Okay, so all right, so we've talked about the mountains. I would also add a little color to those mountains eventually, green and brown, just like we've done on the other maps. Okay, and there's wanted to talk about also in the other regions, we discussed some things that appear on all of the maps, and I want to do a little review about all that. Every region has a nice title that I hope you've colored in. Okay, it's also got a compass rose. Every map has a compass rose. Make sure you've got that on your map of the West. Every map, we created a nice border and map grid using letters and numbers. Okay, so make sure all of your maps have that feature. Also, we have the key on every map. We talked about that in the previous video as well, the map key. And there's one other thing that's common to all of the maps. We put some of the state symbols on the edge, and you can, like for instance, for Utah, we drew the American seagull, which is the state bird of Utah. In fact, I also suggested listing a bunch of symbols from each state. You could always turn your paper over to the back and make if you really want to get into the state symbols, you could, like for California, we listed the state bird, which is the California quail, the state tree, the California redwood, the flower is the California poppy, state insect, California dog-faced butterfly, and we listed the nickname, which is the golden state. So you could do that for all of the states if you'd like. You could just turn your paper over and kind of review all the different symbols for all these states. Okay. Also, you could add some color. Do a little research and color in the symbols that we've drawn, and draw some more of your own as well. And I'm sure your teacher's going to add a lot of information to these maps as well, even more than what we've presented in these videos. So let me just show the finished version of the West. Okay, so you can see I've colored in all the mountains, labeled all the. You can use this video to reference your capitals if you want, or you can use your atlas. Okay, so there you have the West. That's a good map to wrap up our series, and I hope you've enjoyed doing this series of maps, and it's going to take you a while working through all 5 of the regions, and you'll really know a lot of, you'll get a lot of knowledge about the states. Okay, thanks again for working so hard on these maps, and good luck.